Charles Coward stared out the barred window of his solitary confinement cell, his battered body aching from the brutal beating he had endured. Yet, despite the pain, his lips were curved in a slight smile that he had known the risks when he made the decision to sneak back into the Nazi prison camp, but his conscience would not allow him to abandon his fellow prisoners to their fate. They were counting on him, and he refused to let them down. As the bitter winter wind howled outside, Charles allowed his mind to drift back to the events that had led him to this moment. It had been 3 agonizing months since he had made his daring escape from the camp. The memory of that harrowing night was seared into his mind, the adrenaline coursing through his veins as he scaled the electrified fence, the crushing guilt he felt leaving his comrades behind. In the weeks that followed, Charles had found refuge with a kind-hearted family in a nearby village. They had nursed his wounds and provided him with food and shelter, all the while urging him to flee to safety. But Charles knew he could not simply abandon the men he had left in the camp. They were counting on him, and he refused to let them down. So, under the cover of darkness, Charles had slipped back into the camp, his pockets stuffed with stolen medicine and rations. He had managed to distribute the supplies to the most desperate of his fellow prisoners before the guards discovered his treachery. The beating that followed was savage, but Charles endured it without a single cry of pain, his only thought being the welfare of those he had sworn to protect. Now, as he sat in his cell, Charles knew that his actions would likely cost him his life. But he had no regrets. The look of gratitude and hope in the eyes of the men he had helped was worth any punishment the Nazis could inflict. They were alive because of him, and that was all that mattered. As the sun began to set outside his window, Charles closed his eyes and said a silent prayer. He knew that his time was running short, but he also knew that he had lived his life with honor and courage. Whatever the future held, he would face it with the same unwavering spirit that had guided him through the darkest days of the war. With a deep breath, Charles opened his eyes and gazed out at the fading light. He may have been a prisoner, but in that moment, he felt freer than he ever had before.